Hey Seth, so we're going to go ahead and go through these. This recorder limits me to 15 minutes, so I will be pretty efficient on going through them if I can. So, um, crouch block idle, it's feeling pretty good. I feel like maybe the left arm and the right arm are twinning just a little bit, not necessarily in their pose, but in their timing. It's like you got them feeling kind of loose individually, but like they kind of curl in at the same time, and I maybe would sort of offset that just a little bit. Um, and I feel like I've been telling people that stuff feels ping pongy. So let's say your character's hips are kind of low over on this side and low over on this side, and then you kind of go up to get from there. So you go from one side to the other by kind of going up through this pose. And the problem is when you come back, it feels a little bit like you get a little too close to this pose again. Like maybe the next pose is like right there. And so I think just kind of by changing that up just a little bit, maybe the next passing pose going back is more like that. Or if you really wanted to get crazy, like dipping it down in here into it. So what you get is instead of this back and forth, you get sort of this like path that the character loops through. Does that make sense? Or even a sort of rings through if it goes in a circle. Um, so I feel like your motion more than anything, the translations feel like that on the hips. Um, but otherwise, I think this is actually looking pretty good. The biggest thing I notice is I feel like the arms are just a little too um, similar on what they're doing. So you may even try changing one arm pose, like putting it a little lower or something like that. So your neutral idle or your regular idle. So I can kind of feel that your crouch idle is sort of built off of that because the arms kind of feel like they're doing the same thing. So some of those same comments apply, like they kind of feel like they're doing the same thing together. Maybe offset those a little bit, but otherwise, this one doesn't feel quite as ping-pongy in the body. Um, and so I think you could loosen the arms up just a little bit, maybe lower one arm a little bit, just change the pose just a little bit. But they kind of feel like they bend together at the same time, and so just maybe offsetting one arm just by shifting the whole arm, all the controls for the arm a frame earlier or something like that. Um, the other thing I notice is the character is kind of leaning forward on this knee. You may roll up on the ball of the foot just a hair on this rear foot. So this one's feeling like you really mainly just have the main poses on it. I think you could change the arms up a little bit so they don't feel quite as symmetrical. I like what you're doing with the feet, so maybe add a little bit of that in the arms. Um, and I think you're probably still working on your tangents because right now they feel like right now it feels like his translate Y is kind of linear. Like it's going from down straight up to the top and then bouncing back down. And of course, you know that you need it kind of this arc here. So I think that you probably already know that and are going to be working with that. The big thing I think is to kind of offset the body parts a little bit as they're flying up, so it feels like stuff like the movement of the body maybe is like sort of dragging on the arm. So this one feels pretty early in the process. So I'm not going to beat it too much. The biggest thing I think is working on some of your offsets and make sure that your contact poses when your character pushes off, like get one leg that goes completely straight and like really feels like it's pushing up off the ground or pushing off the ground. Yeah. Um, yeah. So these are some good poses on the run right now. I feel like the arms are mainly feeling like they're rotating from the shoulders, and I think it's because you need some offset on the forearms and the hands. Um, and I feel like you need some just to go through the curves and polish a little bit on the offset of the hips up and down because I think what you need is feel like the foot hits the ground and goes flat, and then one frame after that is when the character's hips hit the lowest point. And right now they kind of feel like they're hitting it at the same time, and I think that would help a little bit. It also feels like there's not really very much rotation going on the main part of the character's body. It feels like it's kind of just going up and down. Having said that, it's actually still pretty solid because of how strong your poses are. And the timing's working pretty well. You just need to tweak it a little bit. So your walk, polish 1. This is feeling pretty good. The character's feet are pointing straight forward, and so I'd maybe consider angling them out just a touch. And the hand pose feels a little like default, like it needs something a little more, not just like, put the hand in some sort of pose. And right now it feels a little bit like it's kind of stiff. Now I don't know if you're getting that loop pop because of a duplicate frame, or if it just kind of needs to work on the way you flow from your last keyframe to your first keyframe and back. I know in the past we've used that option to loop by cycle or whatever. And so if you're doing all this in one file, you may not be getting that. But what it feels like, and if this is a loop point issue, is that it feels like if this is your start frame, this is your end frame, your start frame is kind of doing something like this and carrying on, and then you probably get this, this curve that does something like this, and then comes back in and kind of, eases in there. Problem with that is if we were to turn on cycle, we know what that would look like. It would do this, and it would do this, right? And what you want it to look like is this, like it just passes straight through it. So what you would have to do is you go in there and sort of fake it. So change this tangent and this tangent, because you've worked with tangents enough to where you could visualize how to make that tangent look like it flows straight, straight through here into that curve. So you would kind of have to just go in there and fake that if you're not setting it up to loop. But that kind of feels like maybe there's something going on with that. So I'd look at your loop points for that. Otherwise, though, this is actually really a pretty solid walk. That and the hands are the only two things I really notice. And so this is the blocking of the crouch walk. Yeah, if you're just blocked in on this one, and I see that now based off how you have it named, this is actually looking pretty good. The knees are kind of aiming out a little bit, and I feel like the feet are still aiming forward. So I would consider maybe aiming the toes out just a little bit. And then, of course, the arms don't really feel like they're doing anything. So I think you need a little bit more of that, and you need a little bit more rotation in the body. But otherwise, this is actually this is a good start, and I think you're building into a good pose. So you kind of work with that a little bit to loosen up the arms and maybe angle those feet a little different. I think we had some notes about this in the crouch idle, about it feeling a little twinny. I can kind of feel that in the crouch walk as well, as that the arms feel a little too perfectly symmetrical out to the side. Not that there's anything really that wrong with it being a little bit symmetrical on a walk, but I think that you could really loosen this up, maybe lower one arm or something like that, to have a little bit more style to the crouch walk. So overall, though, it's looking really good. Keep up the good work. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be emailing out the sort of the proxy grades or whatever in a little bit here. So thanks. Talk to you soon.